What's up? What's happening? Welcome in to the Hoffman Show on a Monday here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We got a lot of different stuff that's going on today. It is a wild sports day in that there's just a million things happening, and we are going to try to figure out the best way to talk about as many of them as we possibly can. We have the Mystics that we can talk about. They're off to a 2-0 start. We have Commanders news, kind of. We have Commanders news is just RFK Stadium. Their team president talked about some stuff. We have some fun NFL projections that I know Linnell was talking about during the Russell show. We have the NBA playoffs, which were not as exciting this weekend as we would have hoped, just from a pure excitement level, although obviously we're going to have a great conference final. We got a little bit of everything today, Anthony. It's a potpourri of all things on a Monday. Are you fired up and ready to go?
I am indeed.
All right, we're going to start with the Mystics. Excellent. Good. Glad you're fired up. Glad you're ready to go. Seems like there's a lot going on over there. Anthony's trying to fix his seat, trying to find some headphones. I feel like you just sank too low. I think Anthony is now sitting in a chair that is like designed for a first grader sitting at a first grade sized desk, but he's an adult sitting at a radio board. Good now? You all set?
I think so. Yep.
Finally, okay. There's a lot of me and my ADD watching you fidget. We weren't going to get anywhere. The Mystics have gotten somewhere, Anthony. The Washington Mystics are 2-0. They're 2-0 with a very nice win opening night over Atlanta, and then a heck of a comeback win. They were in a big hole early against the Connecticut Sun yesterday, and they had 4 points like 8 minutes into the game, and were able to put things together towards the back end of that first quarter, closed down the lead, played well enough defensively to stay close, and then lo and behold, by the third quarter, like they're in a dogfight, and they closed out the game. And by they, I mean Brittany Sykes and Sonia Citron. But before that, Anthony, did you see my post about when this team got their second win last year? So if I pop quiz you on this, even though technically the answer is on the screen right now for anyone watching on YouTube, do you have the stream up, or do you just have me up without the graphic?
I do not have the stream up right now.
Okay, good. So I can ask you the pop quiz question. When did the Mystics get their second win in 2024? What date? If I tell you the season started...
The specific day?
Give me a rough guess. Like, they got it this year on May 18th. When did they get it last year?
I would say probably like late June or early July. Like, we were terrible to start. What were we, like 0-10?
Yeah, you 11? Remembered. They were 0-12 to start last season.
0-12. Yeah, we were bad.
Their second win last year came on June 14th.
Goddamn.
June 14th. This year it came on May 18th. The funny thing was they went 0-12 and then they won 4-5 and then they went on another huge skid. But the big reason why they were so bad to start last year was they had no depth. And when they had some of their key players out, which Brittany Sykes got hurt right away, Shakira Austin got hurt pretty much right away, they had no one to come in and clean up. And this year, again, Shakira Austin misses game one, gets in a tiff with Marina Mayberry because, of course, you think they were arguing over how much salt Marina puts on her food?
Probably not.
It's an inside joke for anyone that followed Unrivaled and specifically followed the players on Unrivaled of social media. Marina Mayberry and her cooking was a whole thing. Anyway, no, they were fighting over a foul that Shakira committed, and Marina felt the need to stand up for her teammate. And Shakira told her in exactly these words. One of them I'm going to omit because I don't feel like getting fired today. Back the word I'm omitting up. And double T. And then Shakira got her second technical from the bench later and gets ejected. So basically no Shakira Austin for 2 games. Aaliyah Edwards, low back contusion. We'll see if she's back on Wednesday. And at the end of this game against Connecticut, after she had been nails down the stretch against Atlanta, Brittany Sykes fouls out. And who comes to save the day, Anthony, other than the rookies? And I think, we'll talk about this more coming up. We're going to do a little W opening weekend action talk, including, yes, we will reference the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese foul that happened and made First Take producers everywhere very excited. But there's something happening in the league where for years and years and years and years and years, rookies just stunk in the WNBA because the league was such a jump from college basketball. And I think in part due maybe to NIL, although in the women's game, players didn't leave early, but you are getting these really high concentrations of talent at big schools. So you have that element. And just, I think, the evolution of the game. I think we are finally getting women's basketball players who were invested in at the youth levels, which for years the youth levels on the women's side were underfunded and college programs were underfunded. And so now we're getting, I mean, it wasn't that long ago to the point that the player, Sedona Price, who she wound up going undrafted this year for totally unrelated reasons. But like Sedona Price, who got drafted this year, was the one who sent out the tweet in 2020 or 2021 in the bubble of like, hey, look at our weight room compared to the men's. And it was like that little hotel room stack of weights, and the men had like 18 squat racks. So like the funding and the resources available, you invest in the game and you see what happens. So now you have Sonia Citron coming in as the 3rd overall pick, and she's ready to play. Kiki Iriafin coming in, I don't know if Kiki was anticipating starting or if they were anticipating her starting as the 4th overall pick behind Edwards and Austin. She comes out and has 17 and 14 and just does work. Aaliyah was really solid last year. Obviously Caitlin, different level. Angel, what she did last year, different level. I'm sure that while Paige had a struggle opening night, like Paige Beckers is going to come out and play really well. And you're just seeing more rookies, more young players ready to play. And luckily for the Mystics, that includes the 2 they've got this year. It'd be great if Georgia was out there too, because I definitely think you see some times where they could use a little bit of help at point guard. But what Sony's doing, man, and Kiki on Sunday, they got a squad, bro. Not that they're going to compete, not that they're going to be amazing. But I also, like, they have their pick and Chicago's pick in next year's draft. I wouldn't want to have to make a bet on which pick is higher, because I truly think that Washington can compete night in, night out with most teams in this league. Facing New York's going to be really hard. Facing Indiana is going to be really hard. And they have a 4-game stretch coming up where they play those 2 teams back-to-back twice. So it's like Indiana, New York, which feels cruel. But outside of those 2 teams, like, I could see them competing with anybody on most nights, and even those teams, they'll find a way because of how they play and some of the young pieces that they've got.
Yeah, I didn't expect the rookies to hit the ground running this fast and this hard. But at the same token, like, this is the youngest team in the WNBA, and they're going to have ample opportunity to go out there and play. And I'm glad, Sydney's allowing them to, play through everything, to be honest. And to be honest, their transition, their adjustment to the WNBA hasn't been that bad. I know Sonya did get hit by BG in the preseason, and, that was her welcome to the W moment.
By the way, A+ Instagram caption from the Mystics. They put up some of Sony's highlights, and they go, "Dear WNBA," or the WNBA had their welcome to Sonia Citron moment.
Is it after she hit the shot?
No, just like all like a collection of her highlights. But she had a couple of highlights, including she basically had the game clinching shot. And she's hit clutch free throws. I mean, she's out there guarding some of the best players in the league. I mean, against Atlanta, like, she's given Alicia Gray all she can handle. And she's obviously got reinforcements, like Slim's a Defensive Player of the Year candidate always. But, like, they're putting Sony out there on some of the best guards and saying, hey, kid, hold up. And she's like, okay, I just go play basketball now. And it just looks like it does at Notre Dame for her, which is crazy.
Yeah, she was on Mabry at the end of yesterday's game due to Slim fouling out and also being in foul trouble. Yeah. But she just did what she was supposed to do, stay in front of the defender. So big shout out to them. I do hope Slim continues to play at this level and that she stays healthy, because she is an all-star in this league, dog. She is an all-star. and she's gone out there and she's shown it. So, let's go Mystics 2-0, baby.
Yeah, I mean the shot creation from Brittany, both for herself and for others, her ability to find. She's such a I don't know how to say it other than she's a funny player. Like I sometimes laugh watching her because she just is so unique with how she moves around the court. Her movements can be herky jerky, but also so incredibly smooth. Sometimes it feels like at the same time. And yeah, Steph's hitting shots. Like they got people. That's it. The last thing too about the Mystics is the pace they play at. Like one of the ways you can mitigate some of this is a really grimy, grinded out, tough league where teams are running all kinds of different stuff and you gotta talk and communicate, and that stuff gets really hard for young players. Just get out there and run. And like that's how they want to play anyway. They want to play fast. But letting Kiki and Sony and Slim and all of them use their athleticism, and that's not going to change when Shakira is back and when Aaliyah is back. They've got so many players who can handle the ball. They have so many players who can hit, space out and hit threes. They have good cutters. Like that is a really great way to play for this team. And the fact that they had the scoring struggle they did in the first quarter yesterday, where it was legitimately, I want to say there was like 2:30 or something left on the clock in the first quarter, so almost 8 minutes in the game, and I think they had 4 points. It was bad.
18-4.
It was bad. They scored 90 plus. Like that is in a 40-minute game.
We only had 60 at the end of the third, so we put up 30 in the fourth.
They got cooking, and so that is it. Not only are they better than people expected, they are also very fun. WNBA.
Are they better than what you expected?
We're gonna find out. They're actually
Okay.
no, right? I think that there's an opportunity for them to start 3-0 based off their schedule. Like Atlanta was gonna be tough. I don't think Connecticut's very good. Golden State's not very good as the expansion team. But like, are you gonna go 0-4 against Indiana and New York? Because I would expect you to, based off the level of those two teams versus your level. Yeah. But if you show me you can compete with those two teams, especially this early when how veteran they are and how not veteran you are, like that would then really show me something. So I'm excited for that. Next Wednesday, 28th, they play the Fever in Baltimore. Trying to go to they're going to the bigger arena with Capital One under construction. And then Friday, they host the defending champs at home at Care First Arena. All right, when we get back, the rest of the weekend in the W, and why I don't really want to talk about this Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark latest flagrant foul. You'll hear from new Commanders President of Business Operations, Mark Clouse, coming up at 4:30. He was speaking on a panel and talking about the new RFK Stadium. So that's coming up in just a little bit. Also, today's top story, newsiness-wise, we're going back to the weekend and the Orioles firing their manager. Chelsea Janes wrote a great column about it in the Washington Post, and Chelsea's going to join us coming up at 5 for Not My Beat. So we're a little all over the place today. But Anthony, the talk of the sporting world this weekend was that Angel Reese got fouled by Caitlin Clark, and they called a flagrant, and Angel wasn't happy about it. And then after the game, they both said, let's move on. And then nobody did. Why? I honestly thought about just not talking about it at all. Because it's okay to not have a reaction to something that is ultimately a basketball play. And I'm not going to play dumb and not pretend like I don't understand why people talk about it. But the reason is because sometimes media is a self-eating machine of stupidity, and we can't help ourselves. And if we all just went, yeah, it was a basketball play, it happened in a game where the bigger thing is, wow, Indiana looked great and Chicago looked like booty, then we could have basketball discussions as opposed to, do Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese hate each other? No, they don't. But they're both highly competitive individuals. And Caitlin, I thought the foul was it was a good hard foul in 1988 in the NBA. It's called a foul. And anything after that, from like the 90s on, they got this flagrant thing that they invented, and it's a flagrant. And it probably actually didn't even call it a flagrant until like 2008 or something like that, when they started to get a little more sensitive on what is flagrant and really getting into the definition of it. And if you see the reverse angle and there's a little bit of extra push from Caitlin and you want to call it a flagrant, fine. I would have been perfectly fine with it just being a common foul. And Angel's reaction doesn't help. Aaliyah Boston does the right thing and steps in. Caitlin also does the right thing, stepping in and being like, I will pay your fine, Aaliyah. Thank you for being the big who stood up for her guard. And then you move on, because that's how basketball goes. And this happens all the time. And just because it happens with these two doesn't mean that we need 1,000 think pieces or every village idiot going, hey, look at me. And then the rest of us going, hey, village, come get your idiot. He got out again.
Yeah, I mean, I can tell, like, you're not happy about the discourse surrounding Angel and Caitlin.
Well, it's also just like, so it happens, right? And I go on social media and everyone's like, oh, First Take producers are so excited. And I'm like, you could just be like, good hard foul, move on. Like, we don't have to anticipate the outrage, because that just encourages the stupid outrage machine to get going at full speed.
Do you think the refs upgrading the foul also sort of kind of amplified the,
No.
I mean, I guess the reality of the situation?
No, it was a hard foul. It was a definitive, hard foul. Angel's not a great free throw shooter. So in that situation, if you're Caitlin, that's the right play. And you make the right play. And Angel, I also, but here's the thing, Anthony. And I'm going to call him out. He probably wants attention, but whatever. He's already getting it. Robert Griffin III saying the world's dumbest stuff about this as a guy who played in the NFL is so embarrassing for him. So thoroughly embarrassing as a human being to not understand what it means to be a competitor when you play professional football. What is wrong with you, bro? Are you that desperate for attention? Are you,
yes.
I mean, maybe, which would confirm the worst thing people think about you since you were here playing quarterback, that you're really just in it for the attention. Anthony, if we were playing on opposite teams in 5-on-5 and you fouled me like Caitlin fouled Angel, one, I'd be really ticked off, because it's yo, we're playing pickup. What are you doing? But let's pretend we were in a competitive game. And by the way, I really like Anthony. This isn't, we don't have fun just on the radio as professionals and then we get in the breaks and we actually hate each other. No, Anthony is my friend. Genuinely my friend. And if he fouled me Caitlin fouled Angel, I would get up and I'd be like, yo, what was that? Don't push me. Don't push me in the back. And that's the thing is like it can look a certain way on video, but Angel felt that hand in her back. She felt that. And if she gets up and is like, don't push me, like I've done that to people that I'm friends with playing pickup. Like you foul me a certain way and I'm like, yo, don't do that. Like that that's not how we do things. That's not how you play. And the referee stepped in and your teammates step in and then it's a moment in heated competition and then cooler heads prevail and you go, hey man, sorry, we're good. Like, you good? I'm good. Okay, cool. Let's move on. Let's go have ice cream after. Like, it's competition. It's fine. They're allowed to be competitive. Men, women, whatever. Like, stop making it about anything more than it was. And, like, I actually hate that. Like, my real intention, you asked me a follow-up question, and then I couldn't help myself. So I'm now guilty of the thing. All good. I'm now guilty of the thing. But, like, I genuinely just wanted to be like, yep, there was a foul. It's a basketball play. Everyone's talking about it. Weird bit. And, like, talk about other stuff. Because that is how not much of an issue this is. And there will be, if I were to post this segment on YouTube, which I might not, I don't even know. But like, there's going to be a million comments that are just people outing themselves on what they already thought of Angel Reese or what they already thought of Caitlin Clark or they already thought of the discourse. Nobody's changing their mind. Nobody's acting responsibly. Nobody's doing, like, it's just an excuse for people to get off takes that they already have, that they don't feel comfortable saying when there's not some kind of spark. And that should tell us everything we need to know, including that those people know nothing about basketball.
Yeah. I think you summed it up perfectly, to be honest.
Great. The Fever look really good.
Yes, they
did. The Sky look like it's one game. We're not going to overreact to one game. But, buddy, do they need some guards? Oh, my God.
I think they would have preferred. I mean, maybe it's too early, but I think they would have loved that they had kept their third overall pick and been able to get Sonya. But I digress.
Yeah, well, we'll see how Sony does against Caitlin. Her first pro matchup against her in a couple, or I guess a week from Wednesday. Yeah, when they come to Baltimore. So, I mean, dang, Sony's going to have Caitlin, Sabrina back to back. And like, if you're not on Caitlin, and Slim takes the Caitlin assignment, then you get Kelsey Mitchell. But like the addition of Dewana Bonner, like they are Indiana's for real. And they're going to be much better, I think, defensively. They held Chicago. Look, Chicago does not have a lot of offense, but they held them to 58. 58.
Yeah.
That is gross. Also, Angel looked a lot better finishing and unrivaled, and then she did the whole let's boink the ball off the bottom of the basket bit again a lot. So hopefully that was a one-game thing, and she can get some finishing straightened out. I'd say the other thing that I noticed from Indiana watching this game, Aaliyah Boston spent the offseason figuring out how to pick and pop, and her range is now up to three-point range, and she looks a little more mobile. And, last year there was a little bit of clunkiness with the fit with Clark in Boston, and now they look so fluid together. And you're like, oh, they're going to murder people.
Yeah. It's going to be a little scary. They give me like Darren Williams and Carlos Boozer vibes on the pick and roll.
Oh, what a shout that is. Nicely.
I think it looked good.
No, that's good. I just two dudes I haven't thought, like the only times I've thought of Carlos Boozer recently is because his kid could be a wizard next year.
Oh, that too.
Yeah, but Darren Williams, when Darren Williams was good, what a player that dude was.
Top 3-point guard in the league.
Yeah. The other notable game of the weekend, contender-wise, the Liberty absolutely smoked the Aces, and Asia Wilson looked incredible. Like, she was super efficient. I think she looks better. That or I've forgotten how good she was last year, and she was the best player in the league last year. But she had like a quickness and a fluidity to some of her guard stuff where like her handling the ball just looked a little bit tighter. And I was like, oh, cool. She can do that now too. So that's good for the Aces. But if Jewel Lloyd is cooked, they are in trouble. Meanwhile, Kelsey Plum looked amazing in LA, dropped 37, highest ever in a WNBA season opener. That actually broke the record that Nafisa Collier, the length looked really good. It set earlier that day, I believe it was. She scored 34. So fun opening weekend in the W. Liberty looked great. Fever looked great. Lynx looked great. Those are probably your top three teams. And then we talked about the sticks off the top of the show. When we get back, though, here on the Team 980, the Commanders' new team president, Mark Clouse, gave one of his first public appearances at a panel over the weekend. and had a few things to say about the upcoming RFK Stadium, assuming it all gets through city council and such. You'll hear from him, and we'll take some calls on what we hear next here on The Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. Today at an economic forum, and Anthony, what was the name of this forum again? Let's give it its proper shout out here.
It was at he spoke at the Economics Club in DC today.
Okay, so the Economics Club in DC. Shout out to you for your video and audio here. Mark Clouse, the new president of the Commanders, who was previously at Nabisco and Kraft, and not Nabisco and Kraft, Campbell's, which Nabisco, I believe, is one of their brands, or he was at Nabisco previously. All I know is John Kime was tweeting Anthony about how when he was at Nabisco, he was one of the people who helped introduce many of the new flavors of Oreos.
Yes, sir.
So
I love the vanilla one.
Very important man here. But now he's with the Commanders, and he talked about what is coming at RFK. And he specifically was asked about the kind of stadium that the Commanders are going to build, and this was his answer.
Through a lot of arm wrestling, there is a roof on the stadium, and I think that's going to enable us to bring 30 to 40 world-class events. I mean, we will be the only roofed facility of this side in the Mid-Atlantic. And so, whether that's Taylor Swift or the Final Four or any WWE wrestling fans out there, WrestleMania could come, but we are going to be able to host everything that's in the city on a national stage. And because of that roof, it gives us a chance to actually create a pipeline of jobs and development.
So that's interesting on a number of fronts. One, I think most people listening right now care about this most as purely Commander fans. And sure, you might have other interests, and whether that's sports or not sports, we're going to take your calls here in a second about what you feel about this. So you can go ahead and start lining up on the phones if you want at 301-230-0980, now that it has been put forth as officially as can be without seeing the official proposal that City Council will be voting on. But it is pretty clear from comments from Harris, comments from Mayor Bowser, and now put fairly straightforward by Mark Clouse that after some arm wrestling, a roof is the plan. How do you feel about that, knowing that, okay, that means no cold weather games, it means whatever else it means for you as a Commanders fan? As a pipeline for business, there's no doubt it's the best play, because ultimately the ability to host events year-round puts you up for more events. One, you could host the Super Bowl more often. Like, yes, they might give you a one-off like they did in New York, and they got really, really, really lucky with New York because it literally snowed the day after, like torrential snows, the day after the Super Bowl in New York, however long ago that was at this point. But they were fine during the game and were able to get that thing off without a hitch. But if you're Washington and you're submitting a bid, you're going to get a Super Bowl as soon as the thing is done, basically, because they almost always give Super Bowls to new stadiums. But then, could 7 years later, you be back in the mix for another one if things go well here the first time around, because you do not have to worry about the potential for weather. And that is one of the criteria that the NFL obviously is going to look at. I mean, they've given Minnesota Super Bowls. It's like, yeah, during the week it might be cold, but we know we're going to have an awesome atmosphere for the game, and we're going to have ideal conditions for the game, and that opens up that possibility. Also opens up the possibility for the Women's World Cup final in 2031. If there are other things like that come through, Olympics potentially, like you now have a stadium that could host Olympic track in the region. Like that is huge, and that could be obviously that would be in the summer, but you're helping your cause there. Of okay, there's not gonna have to get rescheduled because of rain or anything like that. So you're all of those. But when he says 30 to 40 events, we're not just talking about 30 to 40 events over the lifetime of the stadium. Like the hope is 30 to 40 events a year of massive size and scope. So we're talking about if it's 40, or I guess really if it's somewhere, it's like 35 out of 52 weeks per year. That's like an event two out of every 3 weeks on average. So we're talking concerts, we're talking exhibition soccer matches, we're talking college football games, we're talking, could they do another track? They've got this like Grand Slam track that's happening now. Now I think that's smaller venues. They're doing it up at like University of Penn in Philly, but they've also done it in some bigger stadiums. Could that potentially be it, especially if they need to dry run how track would work ahead of DC potentially getting an Olympics in the future? So there's a lot of potential things you could do here year round that the stadium having a roof provides you cover for. And again, is it going to actually be 2 out of every 3 weeks? No. If Beyonce's in town and does 3 nights, or Taylor Swift is in town and it does 3 nights, or AC/DC is in town and does 3 nights, okay, that's going to tack on the average. Plus, they're hoping to get, 10 football games minimum, plus up to 2 or 3 home playoff games as well. So that is something that clearly is on the plans. But that kind of regularity, I guess, to land this plane on the business pipeline side of it, that kind of regularity also allows for people to have more regular jobs at the stadium. You're not just a seasonal employee. Hey, you work security, you work concession stand, you work this, you work that, you have more consistency around these events, and perhaps there's even chances to do some more salaried work and get people like the kind of job they can live off of, not just a really nice second job that's 10 Sundays in the fall, or in the Commanders' case, now that they're good and playing all over the place, 7 Sundays, 2 Mondays, and a Thursday. So the question I have for you, though, on the phones at 301-230-0980 is more, I guess, for the Commanders fans and specific to the Commanders, but you're all well-rounded people. So in total, what do you think of the roof, of a roof on the new RFK Stadium? If we accept the fact that it's coming, that this thing's going to get passed and it's going to have a roof, what do you make of it? 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980 is the phone number, and we're taking your calls next on the Hoffman Show. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. I guess no one's got opinions on the roof, Anthony. We got zippy calls.
Nada mucho.
Nada. So instead, it's time for the weekend in review, brought to you by.
Craig, I told you this on Friday, and I think I told you this last Monday. Nobody.
Well, on Friday, you told me the weekend preview is brought to you by nobody, which is different than the weekend in review.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So if anyone out there who's a potential sponsor has been thinking, I want to sponsor, I want to do the preview or the review, but I don't want to have to do both. Now you know. Maybe that's been the problem all along. Maybe now we'll get someone to sponsor this silly thing.
There it is.
So we got a little Formula One, a little Spirit. In a second is my own personal interests and lots of other people who like them too. In a second, but Anthony, the big thing that we haven't had a chance to talk about and don't have space for elsewhere in the show is the NBA. And we don't want to make it necessarily a full segment. We just want to talk about it a little bit because, like, what are you supposed to say? The Oklahoma City Thunder beat the ever-living crap out of the Denver Nuggets yesterday in Game 7. That's it. That's all. And on Friday night, the Celtics-Knicks was much of the same. The Knicks just absolutely pants the Celtics, and there's just not a lot to say about it. It's one of those things where the better teams, as currently constructed, obviously the Celtics without Jason Tatum. We also find out that Jaylen Brown's apparently been, like, we now know why Jaylen Brown wasn't very good in the playoffs. He had a torn meniscus. Like, oh, okay, that explains a lot. You didn't know that, Anthony? You missed that report over the weekend?
Oh my God! This dude's playing on a torn meniscus. He's
I believe
crazy.
I saw that. Jaylen Brown meniscus.
Oh my God!
Yeah, had a partial meniscus tear. So
still, if it's partially, I'm not playing. I'd rather it, recover and dude, what?
Yeah, during the final months of the season is the report. So
that's the knee injury he was.
Yeah, so he's been not as good down the stretch, and it's like, yeah, he was playing on a torn meniscus. So the Knicks, just significantly better team at that point with no Tatum and a very banged up Brown, and Kristaps Porzingis was never himself. And so you're kind of like, okay, I guess Drew Holiday and Derek White are our best players, and they did a great job in Game 6, but Game 5, I should say, Game 6, not so much. That was it. That was all, and down they went. And then yesterday, it was close for a while early, and Denver jumped out to a lead, in fact, early. And by the way, they did it with the help of Aaron Gordon, who, like, Gordon's such a perfect NBA player in so many ways. A dude who went second overall in the draft behind Kyrie Irving in 2011. And when you say, oh, top 2 guy, and you're like, oh, well, he's been a disappointment because he never was a superstar. Like, if you're the number 2 pick, you'd be like, oh, you should be an all-star, superstar. But sometimes it's just not how it goes. But Aaron Gordon has been a really good sub-all-star, amazing role player for a decade. And he deserves, like, again, not a Hall of Fame guy, not an all-star, like, just a really good basketball player. And he's out there on a grade 2 hamstring strain, meaning he cannot sprint. If he sprints, his hamstring is effed. And he's out there being a contributing player. But ultimately, like, they don't get enough help from other places. Murray doesn't have the greatest day. We're talking about Jokic not having a full-on Jokic day. And Oklahoma City just absolutely blasts Denver out of the building. And now I think Denver's got to look internally and say, what are we going to do? And this is why every single summer, we get to the end of the regular season. It's like, how will these teams improve? And we don't think creatively enough because you're like, oh, Denver. I mean, maybe Denver this year you knew might have to go through some stuff and might do some significant roster changing because they fired their coach and their GM. And so, okay, that one's a little more predictable. But if I had told you in February, hey, Denver might blow it up around Jokic at the end of the season, and everything could be on the table, you would have been like, that seems crazy. They won a championship a few years ago. But I would say basically nothing would surprise me this offseason. with the Denver Nuggets outside of them unloading Nikola Jokic which would be so incredibly stupid. Yet still the second dumbest trade of the NBA season because Luka Doncic did get traded to the Lakers.
Yeah, that would be insane. I don't think we're ready for that.
No, and the only reason Doncic is dumber, by the way, is because Doncic is younger. Jokic is the best player on the planet right now, bar none.
Yeah, no question. But yeah, you talk about the Nuggets and the others. Julian Strawther, who had an insane Game 6, nowhere to be found. And then you talk about Michael Porter, you talk about Aaron Gordon.
Porter's got to go, bro.
Yeah, I mean, both of them were like banged up though. Like Porter, his shoulder, he had a lot going on.
He's supposed to be good at one thing and he's not. And
Yeah.
I would let someone else have the knot.
Yeah,
I would be trying to replace him with someone who is more reliable or less expensive, and replace him by committee because I can't. If I'm Denver, I can't do the
Yeah.
thing. Like Aaron Gordon, I would keep Gordon. I would keep Jokic. I would keep Murray. And see if we can get more out of that. But if you're like, the only way we can get something better is by trading Murray, then you have to think about it. Just that's a high bar to get something better than Jamal Murray.
Yeah, and I think also when you just look at the Nuggets, they lost a couple of more role players. They lost the KCPs of the world. They lost the Bruce Browns of the world. And you look at a team like the Indiana Pacers, who's relying on their depth, and I think that's more so what the Nuggets were missing this year. They didn't have the guys that they could rely on. The guys that they've drafted the last couple of years haven't been able to step up. You talk about Julian Strawther. You also talk about Peyton Watson. These are guys they took hoping to, develop into something so that you could move off the Bruce Browns and the KCPs, and they never amounted to much. So I think more so they got to, take a look at themselves, too, in terms of.
Well, their GM got fired, so they already did that look, and they decided they didn't like what they saw.
Yeah.
The other thing about them, and I thought Richard Jefferson, Doris Burke, and Mike Breen did a great job of talking about this on the broadcast, is they're just not athletic enough. And especially, you go the league goes through phases, and it went from like we got to beat LeBron to we have to beat these Warriors teams. And now, if Oklahoma City's the next team that teams are going to try to be building themselves around defeating in the Western Conference, you have got to be athletic. And outside of Christian Brown, they're just not. And Jokic is athletic in his own right, the way he can ignite a break with his passing, and he presents other problems inside. But in totality, around Jokic, they need dudes who can run. And they need dudes who can guard guys who can run. And they don't have that right now. And so unless you're going to lean into being this like 1980s build around the post player, which that's not even who Jokic is. Like Jokic is out handling the ball at the 3-point line. Obviously he can post up, but unless you're going to do something crazy and just try to super zig, but you still have to guard. And that's the thing is I just don't think there's a team that can guard at the level you need to. All right, quickly, other things in the weekend review. We should probably come back to some NBA offseason. Keep building or blow it up. We should play that game. Because I think Boston's in a really interesting place, by the way. We didn't even talk about them. So we'll do that maybe tomorrow on the show. But as Anthony furiously writes it down in the rundown so we don't forget. Good man. Also, the Spirit tied 3-3 this weekend. One of the most frustrating games I've seen. I left that game, Anthony, Audi Field Saturday night with a stress headache. Legitimately.
We should have won that game then.
Yeah. Just bizarre sequences of events. Their defense is not good right now. Also, Danielle Chesky is one of the worst referees in sports, and she has been since I can remember covering this silly league. And it'd be really cool if she stopped refereeing NWSL games. Dear NWSL, you want more mainstream media engagement? There you go. Hope you're happy. Max Verstappen's still the best Formula One driver on the planet. It's very annoying, but he won at Imola. Great day for Ferrari after a terrible Saturday of qualifying. They finished 4th and 6th. Lewis Hamilton just off the podium in his first race for Ferrari in Italy. All right, that is what else happened this weekend outside of the Nats and Orioles. And we save that because we're going to talk actually more on the Orioles side next. They fired their manager this weekend. Chelsea Janes of the Washington Post, their national baseball writer, joins us to discuss next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the team at 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube too at the team at 980. Just after 5 o'clock. Time for Not My Beat.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not My Beat.
So I was perusing Washington Post. I was perusing WashingtonPost.com this morning and saw an article from Chelsea Janes about the Baltimore Orioles firing their manager. I was like, oh, I do want to kind of understand this story more, because it's kind of weird that Orioles have been really good the past couple of years, and they haven't, and then they fired their manager because they haven't had a good start of the season this year. It seemed kind of quick. And then after I read Chelsea's article, I was like, this is fascinating. And so we welcome Chelsea in now. First of all, Chelsea, welcome back to the show. Thank you, as always, for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So I guess the simple version is, what happened? Like, the Orioles are not very good this year. They've been very, very bad. And their manager, who has led them to the playoffs and who has helped guide this turnaround of the franchise, he winds up being the fall guy here. Actually, I'll start here. How surprising was this in the middle of this weekend, where the Nationals, by the way, the team that we normally talk about here, actually swept Baltimore this weekend?
You know, it ultimately, it was surprising because the Orioles have kind of been slow to act in a lot of ways. Like, you know, they got really good a few years ago when those guys, Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson, came up, and they were going to be the next kind of golden dynasty team. And then something happened midway through last year where, like, all those guys kind of stopped hitting. You know, the mojo kind of went away. They had a quiet exit from the playoffs. They came back. They didn't get what they needed this offseason. They needed pitching. They just, for some reason, did not get it. And they came back and thought, you know, we'll run it back. We'll get into the playoffs and we'll take our chances. But they just have collapsed. They have, I think, the fourth worst record in baseball. They haven't been this bad since like 2021 when they were in the middle of their rebuild. And none of the young guys that used to be so good are hitting at all. So it's just been kind of a complete mess. And it wasn't surprising, kind of, therefore, that they have fired their manager. But it's sort of just ripping a Band-Aid off of a wound that probably needs stitches. It's just a weird situation, and firing the manager isn't going to sort of fix all these things that are going wrong that they frankly have no answer for.
So Brandon Hyde is out, and we haven't, outside of the statement, heard from Mike Elias yet, their general manager, nor their new owner outside of the statement, David Rubenstein. So, and Chelsea, I think the thing that's fascinating about reading your piece on this and your analysis, which again, folks can check out at WashingtonPost.com/sports, is it seems like what's happening in Baltimore is in many ways a singular event that typifies the fights that we have in sports about analytics. That this is a very, very data-driven front office that does not seem to have any kind of human touch to it. And not that, you know, when the whole human touch, you know, rah, I hate analytics crowd starts shouting, that I'm like, hey, you guys are right. It seems like the most successful places have a blend. And is it fair to say that the Orioles are missing that, and perhaps that lack of human touch might be a part in some way of their problems?
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think that's kind of exactly what's happening. And, you know, it's not to say that they're cruel or something. You know, I think that they mean to treat people well. But their front office is largely former Houston Astros people who were not a part of the big league operation, you know, when the Astros were good, but were part of building it. So they were part of player development, part of, you know, the draft team. Mike Elias, their GM, was a big draft guy for them. And I think part of what we've seen is he's done that really well. He's built them back, the Orioles back. You know, he built the farm system back. He got all these prospects here. He was really good at sort of looking at, you know, young players and picking the right ones and getting them to the big leagues. And then once they got here, and once there were battles over playing time, and once they needed to go out and get new guys and get pitching, it just has kind of fallen apart. And part of the problem, I think, is, you know, they just have kind of underestimated the fact that these guys are, you know, in many cases, 20 to 25-year-old kids who, you know, are are figuring this out. They're not just going to get better, in a straight line. And when they have struggled, the Orioles have found it really difficult to support them and help them pull out of that. And, I think, another way you're seeing that human touch is that Michael Elias hasn't talked yet. They fired the manager and it's been 2 days, and the only people that have had anything to say about it are mostly his players, which is not a position you want to put players in. They don't know why he decided to do this. He just came in and told them Saturday, and then they wouldn't play the game. So it's a kind of a strange situation. I think the people in the Orioles front office think they're handling it well. I probably would disagree. I think they're putting a lot of pressure on players to answer for something that the organization really needs to answer for. But it's truly fascinating to watch because, they're very smart people. There's no denying it. And somehow they're just completely missing it here.
You also wrote about one of their vets who left this offseason. And I know in talking to whether it's, the folks in the Wizards front office here in D.C. on the NBA side of it or the WNBA side on the Mystics side, or talking about the Commanders and with guys like Adam Peters. And again, just like asking, I say talking with, mostly it's asking questions in press conferences. But I'm talking and they're talking back to me, so that counts.
Totally.
But yeah, I do love that. But they've talked extensively about how having the right people around matters. That, the guys like Bobby Wagner, whoever with the Commanders, and, I know for the Wizards, they really wanted, valued certain guys. Even a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, who they traded midseason, there's a reason they wanted him here to get some of their young players started on the right track. Is that something they even talk about in Baltimore with this team, or is it just the only people that are talking about it are those who are looking in from the outside going like, hey, why is this thing that seems to be important in sports not happening?
What's crazy is they are trying to get the right guys. I mean, over the years, they've everyone jokes there's this one locker in their clubhouse where they put a different veteran starting pitcher every year to help young pitchers. They've had backup catchers with a lot of experience like Robinson Chirinos and James McCann, who they chose specifically to sort of help Adley Rutschman and the position playing core learn how to, be big leaguers. But I think, those guys are really good players who are not on-field leaders simply because they're not stars, and I think what they've kind of missed on, the one deal they did make that I think everyone can agree was a really smart one, was they traded for Corbin Burns, who's one of the best starters in baseball before last season. They only had 1 year left. They knew he'd probably leave in free agency, and they went for it. And he had a huge effect on their rotation. They were really sturdy until he kind of hit some struggles late in the year. But that's a guy that brings you with him. You can't help but be better because he's there. You're going to be better every fifth day because he's there, and there's no doubts about it. And everyone else they've gotten is, kind of this middling guy. They didn't have to give up too much. They didn't have to pay too much, but he's pretty good. And those guys don't change your fortunes, and they certainly don't take the pressure off young players, like Adley Rutschman or Gunnar Henderson, who probably need some time to figure out how to win, how to be stars. It's not easy. So I think they've just kind of missed on the personality mix, and the guys they have feel a ton of pressure and just can't seem to pull their way out of letting that pressure become too much.
Chelsea Janes, Washington Post Major League Baseball reporter with us here on the Hoffman Show. Are there examples that come to mind for you? I mean, obviously, I think of the Nats in back in the day with Jason Worth, but whether it's that one that you can shed more light on and maybe give some examples as someone who covered those teams, or other examples in baseball of teams that have done this really well, drafted really well, and then brought along the right vets to make sure that talent reaches its potential?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think Jason Worth is sort of a prime example. I think he came in and just took over, but he also had an influence on the field. I think that's one thing that these Orioles kind of have missed is, it's one thing for a guy to know what something should look like, a backup catcher or a fourth or fifth, starting pitcher. It's another for a guy to sort of impose his will. And that's what people like Max Scherzer do, or Jason Worth, or any of those guys. And yeah, maybe Bryce Harper didn't love it sometimes when the veteran was telling him how to do things, but he had Ryan Zimmerman and he had Jason Worth there. And now he is those guys to other people. And this current Orioles crew, they don't have those guys. They have Cedric Mullins, who's a really good player and a really good guy, but he's not going to always kind of be on them. He's not going to say, here, this is how you do this. And that's just not who he is. And that's not his fault, but they haven't been able to find that guy. And Anthony Santander, he wasn't that guy, but he was a little closer to it than everyone else they had. But they look at the numbers and they say, oh, Tyler O'Neill's kind of the same guy offensively. We can get him for cheaper. Let's let Santander go. And it turns out that matters. And, it's kind of fascinating. But I think a really interesting comparison actually are the Astros that Mike Elias was there to build. And one of the differences there, not so much that they had the right veterans come in, but that one, the guys they brought up were Bregman, Correa, these guys who just have this hard-nosed kind of way about them. Not the same as Adley and Gunnar. I think, some of those Orioles guys are a little bit more, I don't know, not skeptical of themselves, but they're just not quite as intense, and when the Astros needed pitching, they traded for Garrett Cole. They spent on Justin Verlander. When the Orioles needed pitching, they got a year of Corbin Burns and then tried to get cheap with Charlie Morton and Kyle Gibson and whoever else. And, that really, really makes a difference.
Wrapping up with Chelsea Janes here, I highly suggest if you're interested in this at all, reading her column at WashingtonPost.com/sports. So they fire the manager, and that is always seemingly step one for these teams, these owners, these general managers. It's like, well, somebody's got to go. Okay, well, not gonna be me. See ya. And then the new people have to come in and ultimately fix the problem, because I think it doesn't sound like there's a managerial problem in baseball specifically. Like there's only so much you're doing managerially anyway, to affect tactics, especially in an organization like Baltimore, where there's a lot of data driving the organization generally. So what can they do? Or are they just stuck this season, and then in the offseason they're going to have to try to turn this thing around and get back on the track they seem to be on at the start of last year?
I think the good news for them is that they really have seen every single hitter that they brought in this year, or their entire young core. All of them have performed way below their career norms. So something's got to give. And I think if it does, they really do have a lot of talent. So it's not unfathomable that they could, make this a little bit more interesting for themselves. But the thing that is tough is, and I think this is why it is interesting to your point, so much of their problem is just guys in their heads. They just feel so much pressure, and every time they win a game, it's one step forward and two steps back, and they don't know how to kind of pull out of that pattern and just play free. And I think, until they kind of figure that out, it's going to be like this. And I don't know how you do that. I don't know how you fix that. It certainly didn't seem like the manager switch helped. They've lost 2 straight games since that happened. So I don't know, but they're feeling a lot of stress, and I think pretty much everyone in that organization is kind of at a loss.
Well, we'll see if they can get found. Chelsea Janes will be reporting on it. WashingtonPost.com/sports. Chelsea, great job again on the column, and appreciate your time here on the radio.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
That's Chelsea Janes with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, gears be switching. We'll get some on-the-field football, at least projection style. Mike Clay from ESPN, who's one of their lead fantasy analysts, does a massive, massive book of projections every single year, and he just hit publish on it. So what does he think for the Commanders in 2025, especially on how their offensive players will produce? We will discuss, dissect, and then ask you on the phones at 301-230-0980, who do you think will overperform expectations in 2025? That's next on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too, at the Team 980. And so we're kicking around a bunch of different ideas before the show, Anthony. And you send me one of my favorite things that gets put out every year. I just think it's fascinating to look at. And that is the 2025 fantasy projections from ESPN's Mike Clay. They're out. They got updated on Friday and then put out today. And off we go, Anthony. We have team projections, and then he does all his category leaders, and he also ranks the coaching staffs, and he does. Mike does a lot of work in this document, the official 2025 NFL projection guide. By the way, before I get into the commanders of it all, what's anything as you flipped through here that you thought was very interesting?
I mean, he has our win total at what was it, 8.7, I think it was?
Yeah, he's got 8.7. So they do that based off of the weekly score projections and the win probabilities. And so it's a little bit more than just a straight up, I think this game. So they try to do a data version or data-driven version of it. So they've got 66% win probability against the Giants, but only 42% against Green Bay, meaning it's a probable loss. 71% at home against Vegas. It says they're going to start pretty good, and then they hit a tougher stretch. And that game against Philly at the end of the season is currently a 35% chance. And it's yeah, you're at Philadelphia. That one's going to be tough. But by the same token, we don't know what happens if, again, God forbid, Jalen Hurts gets hurt at the end or before the end of the season. Then those last two games against Philly, 2 of the final 3, look a lot different. So that definitely did hit me, but also their strength of schedule ranking is 22nd, as in one of the hardest in the leagues. That would be 10th hardest in the league. And that definitely stood out. I think the other thing too is they think the Commanders defense is going to be, like, they projected to be the 31st defense in the league, second to last.
And you're giving up the most points, too.
I find that hard to believe.
Like, come on, bro.
And, if you're going to do this based off of projections on individual players, I get it. I get it to an extent. I understand that the stats aren't going to necessarily look great for this team, but I think that he's got them 8th offensively. I think that 8th ranked offense is going to be a big reason why you probably aren't the 31st ranked defense. Like, I also think they're better with some of their personnel than I think that this projection accounts for. I think that they will be better defensively this year than they were last year, and they were not, the 32nd ranked defense last year. But that's my own personal belief in this coaching staff. It's my own personal belief in what I think Dan Quinn is capable of and Joe Witt Jr. and how they clearly had a vision for certain things they wanted, and Adam Peters is very good at finding those things. But when you look into some of the individuals, and also just like, there's certain things that they project that I'm like, I don't think that's how that's going to play out. They project Brandon Coleman, and it's going to be hilarious because there's some people that are so mad at me for suggesting that this could happen. But they have Brandon Coleman playing right tackle. They have Josh Connerly as the backup right tackle. I don't think that's how that's going to go down. I think both of them are going to be on the field. They've got Tunsil, Allegretti, Biotish, Wiley, Coleman as the offensive line. I think it will be Tunsil, Coleman, Biotish, Wiley, Connerly until Cosme comes back. Right? So that could seriously affect things. For better or for worse, because you have a rookie all of a sudden in there. And how does he play? Or maybe this is correct. Maybe he does wind up being a backup to start. It feels crazy for a first-round pick, but, at a position where you've got a little bit of veteran depth, maybe they decide to develop him and to give him a year to try to learn how to play the right side because he's never played a right side of the offensive line before. They've got Luke McCaffrey being their leader in kick returns in terms of the attempts. They've only got it doing, 17. But, I think that's going to be Jalen Lane as their primary kick returner, and they're going to make sure he gets the ball. They also seemingly do projections for everybody playing the same number of games. So they've got Jaden Daniels projected to play 15 and Marcus Mariota 2, which, by the way, is kind of what it was last year. But then they've got all the running backs playing 14. All the receivers playing 15 except for Michael Gallup playing 14, who I keep forgetting is on the team. But Zach Ertz, Ben Sinnott, John Bates, all playing 15 games, and their stat projections reflect that. So there's a bunch of stuff that it's not going to play out that way, and how it ultimately plays out is probably going to have a big effect on the season. If Terry McLaurin can play 17 healthy games again, that seems really relevant and important. They have Terry projected to get 117 targets, 77 catches, 1,032 yards, 7 touchdowns. And I got to say, those numbers feel kind of right to me. Maybe a little low on the catches, potentially, depending on how things go, but that feels kind of right. Debo, 26 rushing attempts, 116 yards, 90 targets, 58 catches, 820 yards, 4 touchdowns. That feels kind of right.
Yeah.
The interesting one is Jaden. Or the two, I'll tell you the two most interesting to me. Jaden coming in at 3,700 yards, 23 touchdowns, 10 picks. 129 rushing attempts, 711 yards, 6 touchdowns. That feels maybe a little light. I think there's definitely a chance he's a 4,000-yard passer this year if he can play 17 games, which he did not last year. I mean, he did, but he didn't. He didn't play 17 full games last year. But it is probably worth pointing out that in these are ultimately fantasy rankings, Anthony. And where do those numbers put him fantasy wise? Do you see the column all the way to the right?
Talking about for Jaden?
Yeah.
1?
Yeah, that would put him first. And all fantasy quarterbacks. So you can say oh, he's going to throw for 4,000 or, oh, he's going to do this. Like if he accounts for almost 30 touchdowns, that's going to put the Commanders in a spot to win a lot of football games. The other interesting one to me is Brian Robinson.
Yeah,
he's got 185 rushes, 776 yards, 8 touchdowns. For reference, last year, Robinson went 187 yards, 187 attempts, 799 yards, 8 touchdowns. So that is almost identical to what he's got this year. 2 less carries, a few less yards, same number of touchdowns. But obviously Robinson last year missed a couple of games. So, just right on track. Like, what happens if he stays healthy? If he doesn't, can guys like Krosky Merritt, et cetera, fill up the stat sheet? So here's my question for folks on the phones at 301-230-0980. That's right, 5 o'clock hour. We're talking to you today. We're taking some 5 o'clock calls. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. And the question is simply, who do you think will overperform what everyone else thinks in 2025? So who's the guy that when you're talking to your buddies, like, hey, I think this guy's going to have a bigger year than people expect in 2025 for the Commanders? 301-230-0980. We take your calls next. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. And we are asking you who you think is going to have a better, I'm going to say their best season ever or whatever, but just who is going to be someone who overachieves in 2025 based off expectations. Anthony, I think on the call sheet, sir, my friend, did you put who the person on line one wants to say, but you didn't put their name. So I'm gonna need their name. Okay, that'll work. Thank you for that. Let's go to Ty to get us started, and then we'll get to more calls. Again, the number 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. Ty, get us started. Who do you think is going to overachieve based off what the public thinks in 2025?
Hey, Craig, how you doing? Thanks for taking my call.
You got it.
Hey, but I wasn't too excited about the pick, but I think Debo. Started looking at it, them screens. Some of them routes the kids was getting last year, I think Debo's going to be able to be that third option coming across the field as Jaden, breaks off and creating stuff off there. I just think Debo is going to be set up for one of his best years of life. Same numbers as his first 2 years, third, fourth year weren't that great, but I think this year Debo's going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued by Debo, Ty. I think it's a great shout. Thanks for the call. Like, Debo's not going to have his best season of his career because his best season in 2021 is like, if he does that every year, he's a Hall of Famer. Like he was unbelievable that season, and he had incredible weapons around him. Kyle was scheming it up, and not that Cliff can't scheme it up, but Debo was in his peak physical athletic prime. He stayed super healthy, and the results were absolutely magical. He was a first team AP All-Pro. He's not going to do that. But he could be really good. Like 1,000 yards feels probably out of reach, but if you tell me he's gonna get it, I would say there's more surprising things that could happen. But I think something around the 800 yards, and if people think that he's like cooked and is going to be a 500-yard receiver, like I would say you are underestimating the ability to create in this offense for a player like this. I do think the fact that someone like Olamide Zaccheaus had such a great season last year, that the way they used De'Ami Brown, like there's a higher availability in this offense. And I think the other component that is big time that when Debo is at his best was really important in San Francisco is he's not the featured piece. When Debo can be the featured piece functionally, but when you get on the board and you're having your defensive meetings and you're talking about that best year that he had in San Francisco, you're talking about the running backs, you're talking about some deep threats, you're talking about this, you're talking about that. And then it's like, and they're going to get the ball to 19 a million ways. And now, for him, now we're number one here, it's like, we got to worry about 17. We got to worry about 86. We know they're going to run the ball a ton. And then keep your eyes out for Debo. And like him being not necessarily the primary focus of defenses, I think will benefit him a lot and hopefully allow him some space to operate and some advantageous matchups. And then we'll see if they have enough else in the receiving room to really create the extra space with guys like Jalen Lane, even as a rookie who might have the ability to stretch the field a little bit with some pure speed. Nevertheless, if Gallup comes back and is good, we'll see what Noah Brown can do in his second year in this system with Jaden. Anthony, they have a very interesting, is the word I would use, very interesting receiver room.
No, we do. That's a lot of versatile players in that room. A lot of playmakers as well. I do want to touch on the caller saying Debo might have, his best season yet. I think some people forget that, Christian McCaffrey wasn't there just yet the year he had his breakout year. And Elijah Mitchell has struggled with injuries. So Debo was more so thrust into a role where, they wanted to put the ball in, their best playmaker's hands. And that meant being at wide receiver. That also meant being at running back. So I don't necessarily think we'll need Debo for that role just because we also have, a lot of playmakers. We have the Austin Eckler's, the B-Robs, and then you also got Terry and, Zach Ertz. Like, we have a lot of weaponry to, be able to spread the ball, not to mention Jaden Daniels.
Right. And, he'll have some keepers. He'll have this. He'll have that. I mean, Debo in 2021, just so folks remember the sheer numbers here, the sheer volume here. Debo in 2021 had 121 targets and 59 rushes. So that is 170 attempts at him being a dynamic playmaker. 121 targets plus 59 rushing attempts. So he was 77 catches on those 121 targets for 1,405 yards. He averaged 18 yards a reception, had 6 touchdowns, and then he was 59 rushes, 365 yards, had 8 rushing touchdowns that season. He averaged 6.2 a carry. So we're talking about averaging 18 a catch, 6.2 a carry. There can't be many other, if any, other seasons in the history of the NFL. In fact, I'm going to look it up in the break and see if I can find if there's ever been that before, because it just feels like such a preposterous thing, especially if I were to put volume indicators or volume traps on it, where it's like, are you averaging 18 a catch and 6.2 a carry on at least 50 catches and 50 rushes? It's not happening. It's a one-of-a-kind season in the history of the NFL, if I had to guess. So the rest of his career, you're somewhere between 11.5 and 15 yards a catch, and much closer to, 2 years ago he had 6.1 a carry. He had 5.5 a carry. Last year was only 3.2. So his yardage on the carries is fluctuating significantly more. And I do think that he'll have a pretty good season carrying it this year because they're going to get him some good looks. And how they deploy him, I think, is going to be fascinating. I think there'll be times that he and Eckler wind up being like interchangeable pieces. Jalen Lane is another guy who can fit that role. So like they're going to have some interesting formations and interesting ways to isolate Debo, create good angles in the rush game for him, all that kind of stuff. But to expect it to be like 2021, I think is just incredibly far-fetched. But again, it's worth mentioning. And in 2022 and in 2024, he had 632 in 22. He was banged up some of that year, and 670 yards last year in 2024. That would still have been second on the team amongst receivers in receiving for Washington last season. So even if you just get the decline version of Debo, nevertheless, what you got in 23, where you got nearly 900 yards receiving for Samuel and 7 touchdowns and averaged over 6 yards a carry again, you're still looking at a pretty significant upgrade based off what you had last season. 301-230-0980 is the phone number, 301-230-0980. We will take more of your calls on who you think will overachieve for Washington in 2025 next. 301-230-0980 is our phone number here on the Hoffman Show. Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And we're taking your calls on who you think will overachieve in 2025 based off of public expectations. And some of those expectations coming to light in numerical form with Mike Clay's rankings or season projections from ESPN. Let's keep it rolling on the phones, though, at 301-230-0980. Let's go to James. James, thanks for calling. You're on the Hoffman Show.
Hey, thanks. First-time caller, big fan.
Thanks, James.
So, as I had mentioned to Anthony, I think it's probably going to be Jaden Daniels because I know that there's this big thing about the sophomore slump, but given how well he mentally prepared last year, I don't think he's going to let that slack off. Plus, if you think about how much mental tape he went through last year, yes, everybody's going to have more tape on him, but that also means he has more tape on the league collectively to use with all of those mental reps that he and Cliff went through last offseason. And I think that between all of that extra mental information he's going to have, plus the fact that at least on paper, he has a lot more options than he had last year to get the ball to, I think it's going to end up working out that he just has a better, more productive season than he did last year.
It's a really interesting thought, James. I really appreciate the call. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to present an optimist and a pessimist view of this. And surely there could be an in-between that is probably most likely. But if you're going to go with James and say that he is going to be better in 24 than he was in 25, I assume it looks something like this. Jaden, for all his athleticism, is actually a pocket passer. And he is a guy that can truly stand back there and dice you. He's very, very decisive. He's very, very good pre-snap at understanding where the ball is supposed to go. His release is so quick that even sometimes when he misreads stuff, he can get the ball there anyway because he just beats the defender with his arm. It's alive enough. It's quick enough. His decision-making, his footwork is all fast enough that he will take a three-step drop, whip a ball past someone, and even though a linebacker was trying to fake a blitz and drop out and get into that passing lane that he's throwing to, they literally just don't get there in time. And so I think that that is something that could continue in 2025. And if teams are trying to then combat that with not faking blitzes or whatever, then he'll just dice that apart too, because then you're kind of giving away your coverage ahead of the snap. But ultimately, this is a guy who is a drop back passer who really understands what he's doing from the pocket and is going to have a significantly better, hopefully, offensive line to be in the drop back passing game more. I mean, they avoided the drop back pass game as much as they could last year. A ton of quick game, a ton of play action. They're moving the pocket. And this year, they have a stalwart. You know, if they discover that, hey, Laramie Tunsil really did change our offensive line foundationally, fundamentally, we can have him take 5 and 7 step drops and read the field and rip balls here and there. Like there's a lot that they can do in terms of upside with the passing game. So that I would say is the optimistic point of view. That goes with the fact that he's not going to lose anything as a scrambler. He still has that element to him. He still can run. All that kind of stuff is still on the table. Plus, it's year 2 in the system. Like, what kind of adaptations does Cliff have in year 2 to grow with Jaden as opposed to entering, year 1 just blank sheet of paper, and we don't exactly know what that looks like. I think the negative view of it is that you would say they have a lot more tape on him, and teams are not going to make some of the mistakes they made last year. And it's going to mean that Jaden is going to have to be more efficient in certain areas of his game, and the offense in general is going to have to be more efficient in certain areas of its game. Blitzing him last year was a nightmare. If you blitzed Jaden Daniels last year, you lost. He has the best way I can describe it to what it appears like to me is he has an uncanny ability to process space. And so if you blitz him and all of a sudden there's someone not in coverage who's supposed to be, he is exceptional at finding that gap knowing who is going to be there from a route concept standpoint and driving the ball into that space. So he beats coverage, especially when that coverage is light on people, because of his ability against the blitz. And you often would blitz him in high leverage situations too, and you play man-to-man on the back end, and he has a ton of big-time throws to Terry in those situations. And sure, you're going to get some of that, but maybe teams are doing stuff a little bit different. And I think also teams are going to try to play man-to-man on this team without blitzing. And this is actually my biggest concern for Daniels in 2025 is at that point, you're not necessarily talking about the skill level of the quarterback. Playing man-to-man defense or playing man-to-man or against man-to-man as a quarterback is not that complicated. There's some route concept stuff that you can obviously read out and be like, oh, these routes are designed to beat man coverage because we have guys crossing each other, and we'll see if, they can get two guys to run into each other or have to navigate some traffic, and that should open up a throwing lane and some openings. Cool. Got that. But mostly man-to-man is like, all right, let me take a look at some pre-snap leverage and the matchups and see, is anybody giving away anything easy with their leverage? And if not, what's my best matchup? And outside of Terry, they don't have guys that really are great winning one-on-one. And that, to me, is the thing that if I was a defensive coordinator facing this team in 2025, based off of the film and the stats in 2024, when you get inside the numbers of where Jaden was successful and where he wasn't, that's what I would do. Now, teams are scared to do that because the alternative or the other part of that is, hey, we're not going to, we're going to play two-man, or we're going to play one robber. And so we have man-to-man across the board with two deep safeties or one deep safety and an underneath bonus player. Well, now we only have a four-man rush, and with this improved Commanders offensive line, maybe Jaden's able to stand back there for 3.5, 4 seconds without even having to run and extend the play, and now any receiver can beat man-to-man if they got 4 seconds to uncover. And so this is the challenge for this year, and it's why improving the offensive line was so important. Because if you all of a sudden are able to hold up in those situations, the one thing where I don't want to say Jaden struggled, because that is not an accurate reading to me of the data. The one area where this offense struggled, not blitzing man-to-man on the back end last year, becomes a lot easier to beat in 2025. So I definitely think there's a chance Jaden is better, but I would also say this to wrap up here. I don't think that Jaden has to be much better. He played at a top 5 MVP level last year. If who he was last year is the player he is for the rest of his career, we're looking at a multiple-time Pro Bowler, probably an All-Pro at some point, an MVP, all of the above. And he might not get that much better, but again, that'd be okay. If he does, in a way that Lamar has taken huge leaps, and he had more to go as a passer for sure, but if he can find ways to become that much better, that much more dynamic, that much sharper, then we're looking at one of the all-time greats wearing number 5 for the Burgundy and Gold. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, final hour of the show, 6:30, we are going to talk to Mark Kestisher of ESPN Radio about the NBA playoffs. But next, Anthony, are we keeping the NBA mock draft here? Or did we decide we're going the Tush Push route?
I think we're going to go with the Tush Push.
Okay. Frankie Luvu. We saw how much fun he had trying to defend the Tush Push last year. Does he ever want to do it again? If you haven't heard, you'll hear next on the Hoffman Show. Right now, we're going to talk about what Frankie Luvu had to say today about the Tush Push. He was on Good Morning Football this morning, and the NFL is getting ready to vote again on whether or not they should ban the play. They tabled the opposition to it and tabled the vote the last time they had their league meeting. But they get together again. They're going to vote on it. And Frankie has something he would like to say. Anthony, roll the tape.
You are, in a way, linked to this play because of that moment. You also have a powerful voice. This week, in a matter of a couple of days, the league is going to vote on the Tush Push, whether to keep it or to ban it. As a guy who has been out there in a playoff game trying to defend it, is it unfair, and should the league ban it?
Man, my personal opinion,
yeah,
I think they should ban it. You know what I mean? But I know the argument is going to be about like, hey, well, you guys have to stop it. Don't get us in short yardage and whatnot. But
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of like a Chico play, man. You got Jordan Mailata on the right. You got, it's pretty much a scrum in rugby. That's how I kind of look at it. And we got to have a scrum too on the other side. And the scrum is, we have a cadence where we all go at once. It's not like you hard count and this and that where, now you're getting us or myself jumping over the pile thinking that they're about to snap the ball. And that's just my own personal opinion, and I'm going to leave it at that.
So I think Frankie makes kind of, I don't know. Frankie makes an interesting point, right? Everyone likes to compare it to a scrum in rugby. But in a scrum in rugby, from my very limited understanding of rugby, there is no offense or defense, so to speak. It's a neutral play. So the Eagles get to all know when the snap count is, and they all get to move together. And the defense is stuck guessing and then just getting run over. And that on its own, to me, isn't actually that compelling, even if it's on the right track. Because the offense, Anthony, knows the snap count and gets to go and start on every play. The offense always has an advantage. It just is magnified when the amount that they can possibly gain on that advantage because of the reaction times of defensive players, which are very, very fast, is all they need. That the game becomes reduced to essentially that advantage, amplified by a lot of people on top of each other all at once, moving in opposing directions, one of which knows when the start line is going to be, and the other which does not. So I don't know. What do you make of Luvu's comment there?
I mean, I think he's valid to an extent. The points that he's making, but I think it also just goes back to the offense sort of kind of just having an advantage. Like the offense always has an advantage, but also the fact that they took out, being able to aid a runner and push, a player forward. And I think we said all the times when a running back gets stood up and all the offensive linemen, all they do is push him forward. So it's just like, I don't know. There's too much gray area in these rules in the first place, but I think he does make a good point.
Well, he makes a good point of why it's hard to stop. The question is that enough to actually ban it?
No.
And that's my thing. It's yeah, you've identified the problem, but that's your problem. And by the way, your offense could do the same thing, except for they can't because no one else does it quite like Philly. There are other teams, most notably Buffalo, that have been very, very good at it. It helps when you have the quarterback who has the kind of leg drive that Jalen Hurts has or Josh Allen has. And you have to be willing to risk that guy getting a little banged up potentially in there. But I think that, I was thinking about this earlier today, knowing we were talking about it. And I was like, okay, let's take out all of the other variables and just say, how would you stop it? And when I say take out all the other variables of if I told you the play was coming with certainty and you didn't have to protect from a sweep or a fake, and it's just we are tush pushing, how are you stopping it? What would you do? And I think the answer would be cram as many dudes into that space as possible. and you just try to put 11 guys there and hope that as soon as the ball is snapped, everybody reacts quickly, and then you stand up the entire line, and Jalen Hurts has nowhere to go because he's running into an 11-man wall. And that would be the play. The problem with that is, you do that once, and now I fake the tush push. I pitch it out to Saquon Barkley on a sweep, and nobody's home, and he's, we do the tush push from our own 20-yard line, and he's going to run 80 yards. So this is the problem, is that, anything that you would do to try to create that wall, if you overdo it, they're not required to run that play, which is why it's so hard. And I think then it becomes and plus, there have been no extended injury issues with the tush push, despite the fact that everyone brings up health and safety. But just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it couldn't happen. And how much more dangerous would it be if all of a sudden it's like all 22 guys running into each other in that way? Or the chances of a guy getting hurt in the pile or whatever it may be. So I guess where I just land is, I think fundamentally you have to ask, do I want to play in the sport? And instead of coming up with all these reasons why, just be like, I don't like it. It's not really what the game is about. Just pushing dudes. And thus, if you want to run a quarterback sneak, that's fine. You can push forward. You find the crevice, whatever, but you can't get pushed in the immediate aftermath of the snap. Anthony, that addresses, that gray area you were talking about, where it's like, if you're within a yard of the line of scrimmage, you can't push the pile. And that goes both ways.
It goes both ways?
You can't defensively, if the pile is being stood up, you can't push it from the back.
Well, they should blow it dead.
And that's what would happen, right? If it comes to a stalemate, you blow it dead.
But then you got those running backs that are fighting for extra. There's just too much
That's the thing. If the pile moves, because it's still moving, then it's moving. If it's moving backwards, they stop it for forward progress. If it's moving forwards, then you're not a dead pile. And if that thing gets past the line of scrimmage, whatever window you want to make it, 2 yards or 3 yards or 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, well, now it's fair game to do downfield. Yeah. Or you could just ban it, period. I think there's different ways you can do it that actually aren't that complicated. But the reason I know they can do this is because this used to be the rule. You used to not be able to push people behind the line of scrimmage. And now you can. And so if the problem is just the tush push, that's fine. But here's the thing. I think that if you ban the tush push, the Eagles will still quarterback sneak, and they will still convert 90% of them. And thus, you still have to find a way to be effective. And all the things that Frankie Luvu is saying here still become relevant. The advantage the offense has specifically, and the Eagles' O-line being great, and Hurts being able to squat 600 pounds and thus create leg drive that most quarterbacks can't, all those things are still valid if Saquon Barkley and A.J. Brown or whoever else are not pushing him from behind.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I feel like even if you do try to take it away, there's going to be teams that just heavily rely on the QB sneak now. Now we're going to figure out a way we can alter it, the tush push, where it's a QB sneak, but it also gives you that, that extra push that.
Don't even need the extra push. Just QB sneak.
Okay.
Just have good offensive linemen who get off the ball and fire, and then have a quarterback who's pushing into them. And you can't have a linebacker, whoever, pushing the defensive lineman. That's one of the complaints, which is why I'm fine with banning it, is because I don't want the offense to have an advantage the defense doesn't have that's specific to a play. This is why Luvu's argument falls short with me, is the offense has the snap advantage every single play, no matter what. So don't do something to create leverage or whatever, manipulate whatever. That's my thing. It's I just don't like manipulations of the rules. So figure that out, fix the rule. But ultimately, the Eagles would still be the best. And when Jalen Hurts retires, they won't be as good anymore because he's the weapon as much as the tush push, the brotherly shove is the weapon. All right, when we get back, the ESPN has released a new mock draft for the NBA. Who do they have the Wizards taking? Not only at 6, but at 18. But first, the latest in the world of women's sports presented to you by Wawa. Chicken how you wanna at Wawa with customizable roasted or crispy chicken sandwiches. ESPN Radio's Mark Kestisher joins us talking NBA playoffs. In just a few minutes here on the Team 980, coming up at 6:30. I'm Craig Hoffman here for the Hoffman Show. Anthony Haney alongside, super producer of the program. Anthony, ESPN dropped a new mock draft for the NBA draft coming up, let's see, a week or a month and 5 days from now. I believe it's June 24th. But who's counting? No one's counting anymore because last week's draft lottery just made everyone mad.
It did.
Yeah. Really, just uncomfortable situation with all that. Really, just I can't. A week ago, there was a different level of hope. I don't want to say there was no hope. And actually, tomorrow, one of the things I want to do on the show is Ted Leonsis gave an interview to Front Office Sports. And in it, he talked about how, hey, we're not going to hang our heads because we got the 6th pick and just be like, we're losers now. Like, no, we're going to make the best of it. We're going to take the best player we can, and we're going to keep moving forward. And, like, I actually really appreciate that from Leonsis. Of course, what's he supposed to say? And there's some other comments that got bigger headlines where he said, hey, we weren't tanking. We were developing players. And there's some stuff that I want to hear it in full. I've seen clips and excerpts, and so we are efforting getting that full interview from Front Office Sports, and I'm hoping to have the editor-in-chief of Front Office Sports who conducted the interview on the show. So we're working on all of those things. AJ Perez, if you're out there listening, local lad, tell your boy to get us an email back. Anyway, the point is ESPN has a new mock draft out. Number one, Anthony, the Dallas Mavericks. Guess who they're taking?
Craig Hoffman.
Yeah, that's correct. I am going to be the number one pick in the NBA draft.
Let's go. Go get that bread, boy.
Yeah. We'll see how I do in summer league. I think I should just ask for a week off of work, and I'll probably be back here because I don't think I'm going to make the team. I don't know. I'll try really hard on defense. I heard Nico likes that. Okay. Cooper Flagg is going number one to the Dallas Mavericks. Number two is very likely to be Dylan Harper out of Rutgers. I still do think there is questions about whether or not this will be the Spurs pick or will they trade it specifically to Milwaukee for Giannis Antetokounmpo as part of a package. But I would be very surprised, Anthony, if Dylan Harper is not the number 2 pick. It would be kind of wild if we had the number 2 pick traded in the NFL and the NBA draft in the same year.
Yeah, I would be surprised, too. I think when we had DA on, he was just saying, like, Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper, like, 2 guys in their own separate
tiers. Yeah, he thinks that Harper's closer to Flagg than he is to whoever winds up going 3. Right now, 3 is the Philadelphia 76ers. They, of course, could try to make a move for Giannis or someone else as well. Ace Bailey is the projected pick there. Charlotte Hornets at 4, VJ Edgecombe, super athlete out of Baylor. Number 5, Jeremiah Fears, the point guard out of Oklahoma. And I'm not going to lie, Anthony, this is how I hope the draft goes for Washington, unless like Edgecombe or Bailey falls. But Fears is the guy that to me holds the keys for Washington. If he goes in the top 5, it bumps someone down that I like as a better fit for Washington. And Fears is really intriguing. He's 6'2.5". He is a 6'5 and a quarter wingspan. He is a really interesting shot creator, and he's really young. He's one of the youngest players in college basketball, so super duper upside. But we know the Wizards like guys who have positional size, and we know that they could use some more length, and Bub Carrington is probably their point guard of the future. So unless you're looking at Bub and Fears as guys that can play together, I'm more interested in one of the wings and a guy who can play outside, so to speak, versus a point guard, team leader kind of guy, because they took Bub in the lottery last year. So if Fears goes 5, that means Trey Johnson drops to 6. That is probably my guy in this draft. I think the write-up from Jeremy Woo is interesting in this ESPN.com mock draft. That's a combo deal with Woo and Jonathan Cavoni. He says that there are some people in the league who see Johnson's play style as selfish, that he's not necessarily the most willing passer. He looks for his own shot. but he's 6'4" 3/4. He has a 6'10" 1/4 wingspan. Anthony, did you hear that?
You said a 6'4"?
6'4", his height, without shoes, which means his NBA height is 6'6". So he's nearly, 6'6" 3/4 because they just add 2 inches basically, which means you're looking at a dude who's almost 6'7" NBA size and wingspan 6'10" 1/4.
God, he can scratch his ankle standing up.
Yeah. Love those guys. Conceptually. As long as they can play. Yeah. And this dude can shoot the freaking lights out. And he took on a ton of offensive burden. And that's the thing about all these guys that the Wizards have taken so far is guys like Bub, guys like Keyshawn, guys like Alex Sarr. They all are, I think, really good complementary pieces. But I don't know that they have a guy who is like, this is the centerpiece of our offense. And I don't know that Trey Johnson's ever going to be good enough to be the centerpiece of a championship NBA offense, but he's kind of in the Devin Booker-y type of mold. And you saw how Booker developed, and Booker helped a team get to the NBA Finals where he was probably the best player on that team. And so Trey Johnson is intriguing as hell to me, especially surrounded by the types of dudes that are here that do a lot of other stuff. And if he's a good kid, and I think that the rep on him, despite the play being selfish, is that he's a really good kid who approaches it really professionally. You get him in this kind of environment, and a coach like a Brian Keefe who specializes in player development and is like, if you play this way, it will work for you. Play our way. I can make the argument the other way. Don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. If the play style doesn't work, if he's not a guy who moves the ball, don't bring him in. But this is the guy that I'm circling right now as probably my number one realistic prospect on the board for Washington.
I love Trey as well, and shooting at all 3 levels, I think, always translates to the next level kind of thing. And the fact that you compare him to a Devin Booker, we all knew, I knew I was paying attention to Devin Booker when he's coming out of high school.
Yeah, when he dropped 50 at Kentucky in that one game, I was like, yeah, that guy's probably going to be a good NBA player.
Yeah, so, just being able to, even get that comparison. We know the kind of shooting that, he used to do and that we've actually seen on display from Trey Johnson at the draft combine. He shot the skin off the ball at the combine. So we know what he can do, and it's more so just all about the development. If he's with it, and then also whatever team, he ends up on, just constantly and continually, working with him to develop his game and evolve it.
Yeah, he's going to have to wind up doing more than just scoring. But
yeah, for sure.
For a guy that averaged just 3 rebounds and 2.7 assists last year, he did score 19 a game as a freshman at Texas. To score almost 20 a game in college, that's hard to do.
Yeah. And
he did it as an 18-year-old freshman last year. So he's the guy that I think is going to be very interesting to watch. And in the 18th pick that Washington has from the Memphis Grizzlies as part of the Marcus Smart trade, ESPN currently projects them to take Liam McNeely, wing out of UConn. He was a freshman last year. True shooting percentage over 50%, 6'6" 3/4 without shoes, 6'8.5" wingspan. So big kid, lottery potential. But had an ankle injury last year, which is going to knock him down boards. So you can just, say, hey, we got a lottery type of talent at 18. I think Will Dawkins and Michael Winger be pretty happy with that, to hand off to Brian Keefe and say, do your thing. Do your thing. When we get back, Mark Kestisher joins us, ESPN radio play-by-play man. He's been calling the NBA Finals for a decade at this point. He was on the call for some of the big games over the weekend. And I also have a different question I want to ask Mark that is also Wizards adjacent in terms of how the league has changed. So we'll get to all of that, NBA playoffs and more, next with Kesty here on the Hoffman Show. the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We're streaming live on YouTube too at the Team 980. NBA playoffs are, well, they're more in full swing. We've entered the conference finals phase. Game 7 yesterday got us there, and Mark Kestisher was on the call for ESPN Radio. And our May tradition of welcoming Mark back to the show after a year of hibernation where he does nothing else but wait for our calls continues. Mark, hello, my friend.
That's exactly, Craig. And my number finally came, so it's good news. We just had a massive storm float through Oklahoma City. Oof. Fortunately, I was back in the hotel and not on the golf course, and the sun is shining again. So it's time to hit the conference finals tomorrow. I'm glad you called.
Yeah, no, it's always great to have you. And we kind of look up from our little hole in the ground after the NFL draft, look around and go, all right, what do we do this time of year again? All right, we call Mark and we talk about basketball. We call Mark and we talk about basketball. Mark, that game you were at yesterday, it wasn't very competitive for very long. I mean, we know that the Oklahoma City Thunder's talent can be overwhelming. They won 68 games. They should win the championship based off everything we saw from them in the regular season. But to see them that thoroughly dominate a champion in the Denver Nuggets, how surprising was that to you?
You know, I was here when they started the playoff run a few weeks ago and beat Memphis by, I think it was 51 points. And, I've seen enough Oklahoma City games this year to know that's their MO. I mean, they turn you over and they just run you out of the building. They play incredibly tough defense. The biggest thing yesterday was, and I think moving forward, because it was the first time that they were, in this elimination game situation, is you still have to remember their average age is 25, and they haven't been through this before. And as much as, I think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, carries himself much older than he is, and the same for Jalen Williams, is that it is the first time for these guys. And, in the post-game press conference with Mark Daigneault, their head coach, he basically, acknowledged that it was different yesterday. You wake up in the morning of a Game 7, really knowing there's a huge fork in the road. And Oklahoma City was fortunate, to play their ball game. Denver was a little bit compromised, even though Aaron Gordon was able to play the game. But in the end, Oklahoma City is just so deep, and at home they're so difficult. So, to me, it wasn't surprising, but with the caveat of that was a big mile marker and flag planting for them that they got through, the pressure. Now, was it fourth quarter pressure? No, but there was still a little bit of pressure having a winner-take-all game for them.
So, Mark, something I've been thinking about actually a lot in this playoffs, especially how it's played out with a bunch of new teams here, is the way it works in the NBA is you typically have to take steps. You can't skip them. That you win or you lose in the first round at tumbling, you get a little older, get a little better, make a couple tweaks to the roster. You go to the second round, same thing happens, or maybe you get a conference finals, you can skip one. But you certainly don't go from a team that is losing in the first round to winning an NBA championship. Like, you typically have to take some bumps along the way. As someone who has called the NBA finals for a decade now, like, what is it about each round of the playoffs that makes it so? That makes it so teams tend to have to learn, oh, this is what it's like to play at this stage of the playoffs.
Yeah, Craig, it's true because it's been a couple generations now, where you go back and you can find those line of demarcations, for the early 80s 76ers, and then the middle 80s Detroit Pistons, and then the late 80s, early 90s Chicago Bulls, and on, just talking about the West or about the East. And, a lot of it is exactly that, is you learn through trial and error. You learn from losing to teams that are ahead of you on that same curve. And then eventually there's that little expiration of window of those other teams, and you break through. And you hope that with your organization, like here in Oklahoma City, it's perfectly set up. It's almost too perfect, with great draft picks and, a ton more of draft capital and flexibility. that eventually is going to hit them, and they're going to have to pay these guys and they're going to make tough decisions. But you hope you're always ascending, and not taking that step back. And it just seems like you're right. It's a rite of passage, especially in the NBA, where, largely, you're playing 8 guys, and it's not like football where you have these huge teams and, you lose guys in free agency and it changes whole player groups, and, in baseball too, in free agency. And there's just as much free agency in the NBA, but it doesn't take as many players to change the face of your team or to keep the core of your team together. And so it just feels like, Oklahoma City wasn't ready last year, very young. And hey, we could have been talking about, Denver coming up with a win, and that would have been a little bit of a setback for OKC, even though they're positioned well moving forward. But it all kind of worked out, on a schedule that we've seen with other teams in times past in the league.
So that creates a very interesting conference finals dynamic. Mark Kestisher is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Mark, the lead play-by-play announcer for ESPN Radio's coverage of the NBA, where last year, Minnesota and Indiana lost in this round. Like, they've been here before. They are the teams that, if we follow the chronology method, the chronology theory, their turn should be to break through. Then they would play each other in the finals, and someone has to win, even though they've never been there before. But I think going into the series, the Knicks are the favored in the East. The Thunder are favored in the West. How do you look at the experience or lack thereof in each of these matchups? And do you think it can help one team pull an upset more than the other? In other words, do you give the Timberwolves a better chance of upsetting this Thunder team, or the Pacers a better chance of upsetting what is seen to be on paper, or seems to be on paper, a better Knicks team?
Yeah, I think I would probably lean toward the Timberwolves, because I think they're being underrated a little bit, and some of that's not their fault. I think OKC was just so good. The Thunder have home court, and when you watch what they, can do on a nightly basis, and even though they had to go to 7 games in the last round, it feels like, they should be the favorite. And but Minnesota, I think, has won 25 of their last 30 games. That's what excites me about this matchup, is you have 2 of the hottest teams, Oklahoma City the entire year, and Minnesota really since the All-Star break and since Julius Randle got healthy again. And, in the East, it always feels like there's a weight toward the big city teams, and the Knicks are really the only big city team left in this Final Four. And again, they're home, so it probably makes sense to have them favored. But Indiana, like Minnesota, is another team that's kind of gone under the radar that has, I can't cite their specific record, but I know since January 1st, it's among the top 3 or 4 in the entire NBA. They're just not players that people are familiar with. It's not Jaylen Brown and Karl Anthony Towns, and people know OG Anunoby and on and on. But they, Tyrese Halliburton is, kind of the lead figure for that team. And so it's a long way to kind of throw my weight behind Minnesota maybe not being as big of an upset between the two, but also of pointing out, this parity that, we've kind of reached here in the NBA with the Celtics being out of it. I'm not going to put Cleveland in that category because they had a great season, but didn't get as far as everyone had anticipated they would get. But just the fact that, we're going to have a 7th different champion in 7 years. And, a decade ago when the season began, you could pretty much book your flights for San Francisco and Cleveland and be pretty certain that those were going to be the cities you were going to in June if you booked them in October at the start of the year. And now nobody expected what we have forthcoming in the next week or two.
No doubt about it. And this has been a literal unprecedented amount of parity. I don't think there's ever been a 7-7 different champions in the history of the league. Maybe I'd have to think harder about the mid to late 70s. That would be the only other time that we've ever seen anything like that. And this has led into the Lakers Celtics dominance of the 80s. And these things tend to be so cyclical. And Wemby is sitting somewhere in San Antonio going, just wait, I'm coming. And we'll see what this Oklahoma City team can do as well. But here in DC, Mark, that actually leads nicely into my final question for you, which is, like, how much are people in the league that you talk to, or do you have any theories, opinions of your own of why we're seeing this? Because like, obviously the Wizards wanted to win the draft lottery. They wanted to get Cooper Flagg, and he looks like he's going to be someone that wherever he goes, 5 years from now, we're going to talk about him being a potential multiple-time champion. He could be that kind of prospect. And it seems like it used to be a lot easier to identify who those guys were. Now you have Giannis is one of the best players in the league. He was, I think, the 15th pick. Jokic was picked in the 20s. Shea was not a top number 1 overall pick. In this Final Four, the teams are led by not number 1 overall picks outside of Anthony Edwards. And even he was kind of like, I guess he'll do as a number 1 pick. It wasn't the hype of a guy like Flagg or Wembanyama. And I'm just curious why you think that might be and what that means for a team like the Wizards, who is picking 6th this year in the draft and is hoping to find a hidden gem.
Yeah, it's a complex question to answer that I'll start with. The draft on some level is a little bit of a crapshoot because we're basing our picks outside of, the Wembanyama year. And even Flagg to some point this year feels like he's a can't miss. And Stephon Castle, as you pointed out, he was the number 4 pick in last year's draft and turned out to be the rookie of the year. And, if you look at the 3 picks ahead of him, I think if we, redrafted, you probably would go Castle with number 1 just based on, what he has shown. So I think on some level there's a randomness of the quirks of trying to take what a guy has done either in college or overseas, which makes it even more difficult, and extrapolate it to the NBA. And on top of that, to the program you're bringing them in. Obviously, with the Wizards, until they turn it around, you've got a lot of young guys out there. And so sometimes, when you talk to former professional athletes who may not have had, the career that they had hoped to have, sometimes their theory is, well, what if I had been, not such a highly touted prospect and went later in the first round to an organization that has a history of, picking well in the middle round, to, getting their players within, 2 or 3 years developed in a different way than a guy who has to play on a young team and might average 20 points a game but may not learn good habits or just, never is part of a team that, can push through or has enough guys there. So there is that randomness about it. But you're right, though, overall. And then we can also take into account, the fact that we've flattened lottery odds because of tanking, and that has hurt the teams who have struggled, whether they're tanking or not, ended up with the most losses in the last couple of years. Those teams haven't come up with the biggest of the draft picks. So then it comes down to your scouting department to make sure who's the guy we need that fits we need, and your scouts have an eye for talent. Because you're right. I think if we go back to whatever draft Giannis was in, I can't remember if that was 2015 or even the Kawhi Leonard draft. He was another guy that, went 10, 11, or 12. And on draft night, and I was there for all those drafts, in different parts of New York and New Jersey, like none of those guys stood out to me. And I'm not a talent evaluator, but I didn't look at, Kawhi Leonard that night or, any other late pick. I remember, even Draymond Green, who came in the second round, or Steph Curry, who was like the 3rd point guard drafted in the top 10 in the 2000, whatever that was, 8 draft. It's sometimes hard to realize what these guys are going to become. And so it's really up to your organization to do their due diligence and hit on these guys. I mean, here in Oklahoma City, if you ever look at the Sam Presti draft picks from the Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, and those are just the guys that were picked, in the top 10, to the Steven Adams and the Serge Ibakas that came later than that. And then this whole new iteration, it's almost unfair that you could be that good. There's got to be some luck, Craig. I think you would agree with me. There has to be some luck, but maybe he's just that good. And so sometimes there is that benefit to picking later and not getting, like the Clippers were always in the draft lottery and never seemed to put it together despite having top 5 pick after top 5 pick.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some element of luck. There's definitely some element of skill as a scout. And I think the player development part is so correct too, and it's hard, like you said, it's harder now because the talent is more, like it was easier to scout when it was you're drafting dudes out of the ACC and the SEC and whatever, and that was really it.
Yeah,
now you're trying to
4
find
years exactly.
talent all over the world that's playing 17 years old for Real Madrid against 25-year-olds in a different league, and you're like, I don't know. But
and
then
our
also
guys who are playing 1 year of college,
Right.
and they're just not fully formed, and we're drafting on ceiling, not and every once in a while you get a good 4 or 5 year player. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, this is way down the second round, but Quentin Post, who played at Boston College and had a really good run with Golden State when Jimmy Butler first came over. And there's a lot of coaches that see value in guys that played 4 or 5 years in the league. They don't have that upside of the guy's going to be a superstar, but you could build depth to an already good team, and that's certainly Washington has a lot of good young players, as we know, but they're not ready for those kind of guys yet.
For sure, and it is something that I know the Wizards have valued in terms of the right vets. I think that's the other part of it is like, how do you develop the young guys by, bringing in the Marcus Smarts and the Malcolm Brogdons and the Jonas Valanciunases, that they've tried to have those guys around, even though it is a bunch of young guys right now. So we'll see what they do with 6, but it's a fascinating time in the NBA. Mark Kestecher is there to call the best games of it. He'll be on the call for the Western Conference Finals on ESPN Radio, which you can listen to on the ESPN app. Mark, always a pleasure, sir, and we will talk to you hopefully here in the next couple of weeks again.
I hope so, because otherwise I'm setting my phone for May 19th, 2026.
All right.
And that alarm's going to go off, and I'll be like, where's Craig?
Yeah, I'll still be here, sitting in the same chair, talking about the same stuff, going, hopefully the Wizards will be here eventually, but we'll
and
they're going to
hopefully
need
I
some
won't
time.
be in a tornado warning here in Oklahoma City as we were about an hour ago.
Yeah, stay safe, my friend. Stay safe.
I will. Good talking to you.
You too, always. It's Mark Kestecher, everybody. We are almost out of show. When we get back, we will wrap things up here on the Team 980. Wrapping up here on the Team 980. Thanks again to Mark Kestisher for joining us tomorrow on the show. It's a Vibe Check Tuesday. Take your calls on some Commander stuff, also some Wizards stuff. We'll also see what else is going on in the world of sports. And also, we had good ideas earlier in the show that I don't remember anymore, but that's okay because Anthony wrote them down. So those things tomorrow on this show. To wrap up this edition of this show, it's time for Real Things Real People Said in real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
You know, the cult.
Yeah, we actually played the Michael Ward thing. We got enough time.
Anthony, you just told me something in my ear, and I didn't quite catch out which one. I know we have the Nikola Jokic one. What was the other one we have?
Robert Ory.
Oh, that's a good one.
Tyler, Danny Ainge.
So in like 1994-ish, I think it was, somewhere in there, maybe 96-ish, Robert Ory was playing for the Phoenix Suns, and he threw a towel in Danny Ainge's face. Danny Ainge was his coach, and he was on a podcast recently and explained why.
What was that? Why did you throw the towel at Danny Ainge? What happened there?
Mario Elie, my boy. I love Mario.
Haitian sensation.
Exactly.
I love it.
Danny Ainge takes the ball out. They're down. We about to win the game. He takes it and throws it and hits Mario right in the face with the ball. You know, a couple years later, I get traded. And so we're walking in the hallway and they're showing us the facilities, Sam Cassell and I. And he was like, I know I hit Mario in the face on purpose with the ball.
And he's the coach at the time.
He's assistant coach.
Okay, got you.
And so now all this animosity is starting to build up. We got beat by like 40 by Chicago. And we were like, well, our offense. And I says, you know what? Can I say something? I said, we keep talking about our offense, man. We got beat by 40. What about our defense? And then Dan Ainge's like, defense? You the worst defensive player on the team. I'm like, whoa, dude. And then we traded away Michael Finley, who was my boy. We traded away AC Green. And my dog, Sam Cassell, got traded. So he said, well, we traded away those people to give you more time. So we go to Boston. I had 3 great plays in a row. And all of a sudden, he subs me for Danny Manning. I said, dude, I'm playing good. He said, man, go sit your ass down at the end of the bench. And I walked, I said, and I'm like, what did this mother say? I got up and I said, what did you fucking say to me? Excuse my language. And he said, I said, go sit, man. And I threw the towel in his face and walked down early in the bench. We went back to Phoenix. They suspended me for 2 games. After that, Danny Ainge called me on the phone and said, I hate to say this, I just probably won you some more championships. I'm like, what do you mean by that? We just traded you to the Lakers.
Oh, my goodness.
And I was like, yes! I hung up the phone. I didn't even know. I didn't ask who I was traded with, who I was traded for. I got in my car, and I drove to L.A. the next day.
That's an incredible. My favorite part is the end. I drove to L.A. from Phoenix. Imagine an NBA player doing that now, Anthony. I got traded. I'm just skirt over to L.A.
Insane.
7 rings later, big shot Bob. Robert Ory, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow here on the Hoffman Show.